So we're about to start the plenary session.
Hey, can people grab the doors? Just get them closed, because that way we'll have acoustic. Yeah, you just, anyone who's close to the door, you can just get up. You have full authority.
We invite you to close the door.
It's safe to do so.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. So we had different ideas to close the conference, and we're thinking, well, let's maybe invite one speaker and do like a closing session, or do something different where we pull more of you. And we decided actually to do something new this year. It is an experiment that we're doing. We have selected some of the speakers that are great coaches with great experience that we are proud to have in our community, and we decided to ask them what goes in their Agile suitcase. So instead of one speaker, we're gonna have 6 of them. And every one of them is going to rotate quickly in a format that only Michael can say it properly. Everyone, like I say Pechacucha, we have Pikachu, and we have Machu Picchu. Only Michael can say it properly. But you know what we're talking about. It's like 20 slides, 20 seconds each, and we're going to rotate. They're all going to come on stage, say their, bring their tools that they put in their Agile suitcase and share it with you. So a little bit of what is this Agile suitcase, Michael is going to talk.
Okay. So Martin Hyder's the one who co-invented this. And it was first done at Agile 2011 and then subsequently at Agile 2013, where I participated and shared my Agile suitcase. And it's just this fantastic experience for both the people sharing as well as the people learning to say, hey, what do people have in their suitcase? How do the people think and approach this whole world that we love and hold dear to our heart called Agile? And it's just a very beautiful, quick way to share. In terms of the format, Pacha-Kacha, or as you say, Pikachu, is actually like a lightning talk, but it's a formatted lightning talk in a way to give a structured storytelling. So it's a very beautiful format, and this is a tradition that you can do with anything that you do in your organizations you want people to share, is get people to do storytelling with this format around whatever topic it is, technical, business, and so on.
So, Michael, do you want to give us an example? Do you want to be the first?
Okay, yeah, I'm ready. Let's give her.
Let's take it. So, our first coach, Michael.
So thank you. So the first thing in my toolkit is this. The culture is the #1 challenge with Agile. So this is from version 1 study. And so it's a kind of a sense-making way of understanding our reality that is used as the foundation for understanding how one might actually work with organizations to help get results. The second way of understanding this culture thing is that Agile practices in doing Agile is very different from the Agile mindset and being Agile. That Bob Hartman pointed out these are 2 very, very different things, and that we can often get confused about which one we want to focus on and what's most important. So doing Agile is not being Agile. Practices are not mindset. That we often do like stand up, and we get all these great benefits, but really when we're talking about relationships, innovation, the benefits are, this should actually say 20% benefit from 3x. Most of the value comes from the mindset. So how do I approach it? My place is starting with heart. Starting with caring about the people and what's really important for them. So if we look at the first line of the manifesto, it's people over process. So we start with heart of what I feel about caring about the situation, then that's what's going to lead to amazing results. Google's Project Aristotle said there's 2 important things on high-performance teams, one of which is safety, psychological safety. When people have safety, when people have that sense of security, amazing things will happen. So this is an essential part of my toolkit. It seems like soft, fluffy stuff, but it's the stuff that makes the difference. The other part that came in the research is equal voice, which means that everyone is heard. Everyone has a voice. It doesn't mean we're all going to participate equally in decision making, because we're going to have different levels of expertise, experience, and so on, but that everyone has a voice and a seat at the table and is a valuable human being. So how you can actually practically use this in your organization is to listen to the voice of the system. Here's Hino Marks and myself at an open space setting up a context where we're saying, hey, everyone's important, everyone is safe, and it's up to you to figure out what's the right outcome. So when we listen to the voice of the system, we have a powerful way to understand what's going on. One powerful way of listening to the voice of the system is with engagement results. Here's an example where we see at the far left, we can see people are highly disengaged. So this kind of information, by listening to what's happening, we actually see there's great suffering in the system. Another way is with tools like Lego Strategic Play to get people to build models to share what's their experience like and ask the question, hey, what's it like working here? People build these heart-wrenching models. Robust assemblies observed on shaky foundation. Right? This is the kind of environments people live and work in. And yeah, so it's a way to listen to understand what's happening so we make informed decisions. The other part is to start with why. Why are we doing this thing called Agile? Why are we here? And when we start with this why, we get a sense of what's truly important for us. So it's not being about doing Agile or being Agile. It becomes about what do we want for ourselves in our organization. And then we can ask questions, well, in order to get what we want, where do we need to focus? Is it on tactical things, strategic things, cultural things, to get the outcome that we want, to get the growth in our organization that we want? And this is a powerful lens to help people understand where energy can be focused to achieve the results, the outcome. And part of this shift in culture comes with having a shared model of culture. And oftentimes we're good at the bottom part of this, understanding what the structures that define our organizational culture are. But the top part, about consciousness about people, about safety, trust, that these are equally important and actually are equally important for helping shape our culture. And the other model that's very useful, is a proven pattern, is that we can create a culture bubble at any level of our organization, whether manager, director, VP. We don't need to have the whole organization. We can actually create a culture bubble by changing how we show up as individuals to make a bubble around us. If we think of most organizations, they say, well, our organization has certain properties that are not very satisfying for us. We go, well, who's responsible for this? They go, well, we're the current leaders, we're responsible for it, right? This is like, sort of Captain Obvious, right? That our leadership is responsible for the structure and the way our organization is functioning. And if we want a new way of our organization functioning, maybe more dynamic, maybe more innovative, ready for the future, what kind of leadership do we need? We need different leadership. Not necessarily different leaders, but we need different leadership to get different organizational outcomes. Like, this is like Captain Obvious, right? But this truth is so deep and powerful that it can be feeling uncomfortable. So to go from our current situation to maybe a nimble, flexible organization, we need growth, specifically the growth of the most senior leaders in our organization, because organizational behavior follows leadership behavior. And we need leaders to show up. And this is what Doc was talking about this morning, about how do we invite leaders to show up differently. So everyone's been in the airplane. They say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before assisting others. And this is my starting place for working with organizations, is to help the most senior level of leaders that want to look after themselves, help themselves before they help others, and avoid falling in the trap of trying to help others when we're not fully looked after ourselves. And another important thing in my toolkit is giving leaders the freedom to choose, not trying to coerce them for what I want for their organization. And I can't stress more and more that this fundamental tool is so important for letting go of my attachment to what should happen and letting them choose what they want for themselves, for their organization. And I've been living this with myself, with my own personal life, to be the change that I want to see in the world. I'm in a intense program of reinventing myself, growing myself, to have these kind of conversations with leaders, to invite organizational change. So I've very much been living this, and I invite you to start with yourself for how can you show up differently. And I'd like you to stand up if this resonates for you, that if you think that you'd like to make it safe for everyone in your organization and you want to help, and you're going to ask people to help you make it safe. So if this resonates, I'd invite you to stand up if you feel like that you'd like to make things safer for your organizations and your teams and the people around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. The next one is Chris Lee. Okay.
Are we good?
Yes.
You guys got me? Hello, hello, hello. How you guys doing? Everyone have a fun time today? I sure did. This was awesome. This was awesome. My tone is a little bit different, and I speak a little bit with pictures. Yeah, go ahead and let's go for it. My suitcase, we talked about what's in your suitcase. My suitcase is a little bit different. I like to fancy myself as a mechanic. I'm a really big car guy, and I like to approach things from not just this tooling aspect, no, just do this, and this is what we're always going to do. I kind of take a little bit of a different lens with that. And we have to as change agents, because there's something very important we have to consider, is that perception is reality. How many of us have that really funky story of a lav mic that doesn't work too well, but also of one where you have a mechanic that's trying to take some money from you, that's going to try to pull something over your eyes, and they're trying to fleece you. There are organizations that view change agents like you guys as those mechanics. They're trying to get that money out of you. You're trying to get that money out of their pocket. That's the perception you're going to have to break. You're going to have to try to break that mold. That's what I try to do on every engagement I go in. I want to be someone they can rely on, that they can talk to, that they can share. And conversing with these people requires something a little bit different.
Pause you?
Pausing.
Yeah, because the slides over there don't match with the slides that you're seeing here.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah. People are seeing the Four Agreements, which is a very beautiful book, but that's not going to help. So
Rock
just
and
hang
roll.
on a sec. We've got a technical issue.
Superman.
So
Sorry.
No problem.
So put up your hand if you notice there's something weird between the slides you were seeing and what Chris was saying.
Chris is rocking and rolling. There's nothing going
You're going
on.
like, okay, where's he going? Like, I'm not connecting this. Like,
Do you see now?
did they got another nutcase up here? Like, what the heck's
He's
going
insane.
on?
Do you see now?
Huh?
Chris Lee.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, okay.
Oh,
Chris, can you ready to roll it?
I can absolutely do it again.
All
You
right,
guys got
all
me?
right.
Can you hear me on this?
Yeah, thanks.
Are we going? We rolling?
So mechanics.
Mechanics. Remember I mentioned about that suitcase? My suitcase looks a little bit more like a toolbox. Got this nice, that makes a little more sense now, eh? So I got this nice big red shiny toolbox, all these great tools. And how I apply that in my mindset is really important. Think back to what I mentioned earlier, that shady mechanic that's gonna go ahead and try to get that extra dollar out of your wallet. This is the perception, you guys as leaders, as change agents, that's the perception that is going to be there sometimes with organizations. You're going in to try to almost show them cool things, and you're going on this great journey where we're bringing them in acceptance, but the problem is they think you're trying to get something out of my wallet. You're trying to change me. That's the mold that you're going to have to try to break. That's the mold I try to break. When I show up, big smile, big hug, hey, let's try to figure out a way to make this work for you. Let's try to make this work for you and go on this journey together. And in conversing with these folks, you may have to consider a couple different people. First and foremost, that soccer mom or that hockey mom. Think about that person who walks in and goes, hi, my car kind of goes ding, 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 or it goes click, 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 or it goes and that's it. Conversing with someone like that is going to take a little bit of a different take as opposed to someone else. We've talked to those who don't really know a whole lot about Agile, but on the flip side, maybe we talk about those experts. We talk about those master mechanics, notice it is in quotes, those folks who probably think they know more than you. How many of us go into an engagement and you're running into somebody who's already got this problem licked? We've got this figured out. Let me tell you what really you need to look at. You should look at this tire right over here or this part of the organization. The conversation between those two different people, very, very different. So you have to know your audience. You have to think, who am I actually talking to? Who am I sharing this knowledge with? And what's the tone almost that I want to take? Do you want to dumb things down a bit, or suddenly you might sound patronizing? You want to avoid that. Make sure to know your audience, and once you've got them on the same page, you yourself, you need to take a step back. You need to say, let's really look at this whole thing all at once. Maybe it's an organization. The metaphor I give you is take a step back and look at the whole car. That master mechanic says, I think there's something going on with the front right. Well, do we look on a little bit further back on the car? Maybe something went all the way down and you got sideswiped, and that's affecting that front right. Only after you do that can you really start to diagnose the problem. What's going on? Let me do some analysis. Let me take use of some of these tools to actually figure out what are some of the things that are going on. Only once we do some of that diagnostics, we can actually get our hands dirty, get under the hood, and come up with not necessarily one solution, but a set of solutions. And I've always found this to be really helpful for me. If I can come up with, we can try this, we can try this, we can try this. And if you're building a sort of opt-in culture, people will feel a lot more comfortable in dealing with you and buying what you're selling. It's a thing we all run into, and if it's, this is the only thing we need to do, That can come with experience, and that's one of the first things I would say definitely goes into my suitcase, and I implore you as well. You can't get to be making recommendations unless you have a couple stories under your belt. If you can't talk about that 1988 Maxima taillight going out, put whatever you want on that from an Agile standpoint. That's what will help you get there. But just having the experience also can be augmented by seeking out certifications. Some folks really put a lot of weight on this, a whole lot of alphabet soup after their line in the email. You guys know the people, if that's you, it's okay, you're cool with me too. But if you have those, people will say, I want to deal with this mechanic or this thought leader. Hey, this is someone who's spent the time in learning these things, being certified, but in addition, they're very well-rounded. I work with mechanics that like to say we work on all makes and models. If you're only concentrating on infrastructure or Agile for finance or Agile for CrossFit gyms, and that's the only thing you work on, yeah, they'll call you, but you want to spread things out and be able to answer all the different questions from all sorts of problems that'll show up from the organizations we deal with. So I say, hey, here's my toolbox. I want to go ahead and fill it. I've got a technique for this, a technique for that, a technique for this. If you've got an empty toolbox, well, it's going to be lighter, I'll tell you that. It'll definitely be lighter. But you want to make sure to fill enough in there so that when the time comes, you can pull something out. But this is what I would definitely tell you to do. Make sure to learn how to use them. There's times when it's like, oh, this clearly needs a screwdriver, and you show up and you go, now how do I use this? And after watching my sister try to pry open a paint can or hammer something in, it's like, we got to show her how to do some of that. Learn how to use your tools, and these are things you may use every single day. Maybe it's a technique for a retrospective. Maybe it's a technique for something that happens all the time. Sometimes you might need to reach into that bottom drawer and find that specialty tool. You ever been to that store where they have rent a tool because you need it maybe once every 2-3 years because you drive a 1983 diesel XYZ and you need it? That's what I'm thinking. You have to have those handy, know where they are. Know where they are because the reality of all it, there are a lot of problems out there, just like there are a lot of cars on the road. Look familiar? That's the view a lot of you have most of the time for those of you who live in the area. There's a lot of cars out there, which means there's a lot of organizations that need our help. They need our help, and it's tough when you stand back. I see something like that as opportunity, but some of us can feel a little bit frustrated at times, a little bit overwhelmed, and that's okay. Knowing that you can't fix every single car stuck on the Gardner right now, wish I could, but you're gonna have to step back and go, what's a more effective way that I can go ahead and kind of chip away and make this world a little bit of a better place? You can do that by reaching out to others. Find folks who have the same values, principles, cares that you do. Help them grow. Impart your knowledge on them. Here's a trick I know. If you're working on that 1988 Maxima, take a look at this. And people will say, thank you. Thank you. I don't want to fix all the cars all the time. I want to watch other people go out there and fix cars as well. It's so rewarding, though, because this stuff is not easy. It's hard work. It's really hard work, and you're going to get your hands dirty. And if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth it. I'll tell you that right now. Because how many times have you gone, whoo, that was fun? That's what really makes it all worth it. Putting this hard work, putting in all this effort. At the end of the day, these people are coming to you with problems, challenges. Us as mechanics, as change agents, we're considering both their safety, their wallet, because we want to take both of those and help them out in both areas to get them on the way, along, down the road, on their journey. That's what I asked you guys to do, okay? And that's all I got. Glad the pictures worked.
Next coming up, Janet.
Should be good. Should be just good.
Okay.
Oh. So I want to know if you can fix our 62 Studebaker. Does that work? You're in? All right. My story starts a little bit differently. My story begins in my office usually. I'm sitting there having my coffee, watching the time maybe, and then I get an email, maybe a phone call, and somebody says, can you come fix my testers? They're not keeping up. They're broken. Well, I go, okay, let's have a more continued conversation. I'm gonna pack my bag. Do you love my lovely bag my sister made for me? I pack it up with all my stuff, my Sharpies, my sticky notes, everything that I need. I get on, I get it up, get walking, take my taxi. Sometimes it's my husband. Make them take me to the airport, because I think every organization in Calgary must be fixed, because it always involves going on an airplane. I don't know. So I get on the plane, I go to wherever it is I'm going to be, and I walk into the organization. I walk into the organization and I kind of look at them and I say, hey, I'm here. Tell me what you need. Or, better yet, let's see what you need. Let's start talking. Visibility is one of the most important things in my toolbox. If it's hidden, that jack-in-the-box, if I can't open that lid, I don't think I can do my job. I don't think I can help anybody else. I need to find out what's inside. So one of the first things I do is I get to the whiteboard and we start drawing. I find that process retrospectives work really well. Tell me what you guys do. Show me. And you start drawing. And pretty soon, you find out that it's a little different. So we start talking about perspectives. I usually come at it from a testing perspective. So, the half empty, half full kind of idea. Do you look at how much beer you drank or how much you have left? That's a testing perspective. So we talk about the problems, because when you walk through their process on the board, there becomes a lot of problems. Well, probably not. It's probably symptoms. Things like, we don't get all our testing finished till the very last day, right? So when you start to do that, I find that what happens is curiosity happens. So why do those stories end up getting in testing in the last day? What does that mean? Curiosity is one of the biggest skills that I like to have, characteristics, skills. I also then take games out. Games that mean something. We've heard a lot of people using games to work. I like to center them around whole team, bringing testing in, bringing all 3 parties, 4 parties, whoever happens to be there, because it's really about that collaboration. I call it power of 3, 3 amigos, there's lots of different things, but it's about the willingness to be open, to share. Can I share my testing expertise? Will you share yours? It's about listening. It's about listening with open ears, but listening to what people have to say. Because it comes back to that perspective. A programmer says they're done. Does that mean the same thing to the tester or the product owner? I usually introduce the idea of testing early. So I had a great workshop today with Ardita on testing early, thank you. Because that's what we want to do. We want to start testing early, the ideas, the assumptions. Often if we wait to the very end, that rope breaks. One of the hardest things I think organizations, well, teams have, is trying to keep things simple, especially testers, because they want to have everything. They want to test everything. Sometimes we take that very simple tool, screwdriver, maybe something else. What is the simplest way we can do it? I also use models, not to say this is how you should do it, but to invite conversation. I use models to say, hey, how are we going to do this? How can we, as a team, test at different layers, perhaps? I think it's really, really important that we test early, we test often, we explore, and that's what I learned today, by the way, is exploring requirements, not only the software, not only the product, but explore all the way through. Let's test. Let's test early, often, and sometimes it's very hard for people to do. It's that pulling this donkey. or I guess a mule would be better, maybe, right? It feels like that. Perseverance is very, very important. Trust. By the way, that's my granddaughter flying in the air. I watch that, and it makes me shiver. The trust that an 11 and a 12-year-old can have on each other, and we can't do it as adults, right? So I encourage you to have courage. Really start to open, think about what you can do, and persevere, and keep testing. And that's where I'll leave you for today. Slice.
Next one, Cheesy.
Okay, I thought I'd start off with just some pictures of me as I'm traveling around a little bit. So here we are. Many of you came here today looking for solutions. You're looking for that one thing that you can change that will make you agile. I hate to tell you, it doesn't exist. I'm sorry. So I think it takes many, many, many things to become an agile organization. So one thing that I'm kind of known for in the industry is introducing a little bit of humor. For example, here's an example of me having some people, oh, that's your partner there, isn't it, Janet? Isn't that Lisa there wearing the hot dog hat? So to be quite honest, we're introducing change across an organization. So it's kind of important that we take the time to lighten things up a bit, that we take the time to introduce a little craziness, some humor to help people feel comfortable. Why? Because we're bringing a lot of change in an organization. So can any of you relate? One person can relate. Okay, that's great. My personal way of working with organizations is I embed myself with the team. So when I'm working with developers or testers, what do? I sit down and I share a keyboard, or I help design a chair for pair programming. You can see that in the picture here. So because I believe sometimes we can help people learn by leading the way, by doing it along with them. And so what else is important, though, is the environment in which we're working in. So a lot of the work that I try to do with teams is help them learn how to deliver things much faster. In fact, I work a lot with continuous delivery. And if we can't find ways to work in very, very tight feedback loops in a group, and we can't learn how to collaborate, it's impossible to deliver software in a rapid pace. But sometimes when we want to collaborate, we find out that there are walls. There are walls that we need to tear down. There are things that we need to pull apart. Maybe they're organizational walls. Maybe it's walls that keep us, that are outside of our control. Sorry, my timing's off a bit. Another tool that I bring all the time is we have to instill this culture of continuous improvement. This is fundamental. So the retrospectives that we have are not just so we can get up and complain about the food. They are there to help us find how do we make ourselves better as a team, how do we get better at what we do. Last but not least, I insist on having the ability to work with leadership. Yeah, there's an example of a leader there. Why? Because so much of what we're trying to do, stop, Jason, is we're trying to set a set of values, and we're trying to find a way to bring these values down to the organization. And if our leaders don't follow these values, then we don't have a prayer of instilling these in the organization. Everybody needs to live the values. The next step is to look at the entire organization, because I'll be quite honest, I haven't found an organization yet that is organized in the right way. So we've built organizations that are highly siloed, where it takes 4 or 5 different departments to get anything delivered. On your Agile journey, if you want to take this all the way, you're going to have to eliminate those silos. You're going to have to work, possibly reorganize the company so that we can build product teams that can deliver software. Next, how we think about our people is really important. Our people are not resources. Our people actually are our most valuable asset, and we need to treat them in that way. We need to give them the time to absorb the change. We need to give them the time to grow new skills, the time to learn new things. Now I'm going to switch a little bit, and I'm going to focus on working software. I don't know if you see this, but this is the Agile Manifesto, portions of it. It talks a lot about building working software, and yet so often when we talk about Agile, we talk about how do we manage that working software? How do we manage the team? We don't talk about how do we really get down and focus on delivering working software. Something I tend to do a lot of is help organizations move away from tracking huge amounts of useless metrics that in many ways harm the team. The other thing that we need to do is we need to realize this whole idea of fixed scope and fixed deadlines has nothing to do with Agile. If we're working in this way, we haven't come close to achieving agility yet. We've got to think beyond that. You see, it only takes one reading of the Agile Manifesto to know there is no such thing as scope. In fact, by defining scope, we actually take the power away from our customers. The other thing that we need to dispel of is this notion that there's a trade-off between speed and quality. Well, you know, this time I want to get something out the door just a little bit faster, so what am I going to do? I'm going to allow the quality to drop just a bit. Yeah, that's not reality, because you see, the problem that we have is that if we allow defects to get into our system, then what happens is we start to almost admit that it's okay to have a crappy software. So the teams that I work with, I tell them that they're not allowed to have defects any longer. Now that doesn't mean that they don't have defects, but what it means is that whenever we find a defect, immediately it gets prioritized above everything else that we have in our backlog. We use practices like test-driven development, practices like behavior-driven development to help us drive quality high. And from my experience, that's the only way we can deliver rapidly. Every time we allow the quality to drop, in very short order, we find that we're delivering slower. So where did we learn about these ideas? We learned about these ideas from XP. One of the original Agile methodologies that people don't talk about too much. I'm a firm believer in test-driven development, pair programming, continuous integration, these concepts, these ideas, because what I've found is that it's not possible to deliver software rapidly if we don't think about and talk about and use these practices. Last but not least, lately we've learned that even that is not enough. We've learned that we need to take control of our environments. We need to take control of our deployments. We need to take control of the way we manage our infrastructure. And if we're not able to do that, it becomes nearly impossible to achieve our highest priority, which our highest priority is to satisfy our customers through the continuous delivery, there's that CD word, of valuable software. So that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Next up, Jason.
All right, so clearly I didn't get the memo. So when I got the email, I was wondering, why did Artie invite me to talk about Pikachu? Then when they kind of put this thing on to talk about, well, it's Machu Picchu. Oh, wait, that's not right either. I kind of got a little bit lost. So I just kind of threw these together in a couple minutes, and hopefully it's going to help explain my journey. So this is Evie, and Evie evolves and adapts based on her environment. And we do that as Agile practitioners. So I wanted to share some tools and models and ideas about how I've evolved since I started as the world's greatest Cold Fusion developer about 20 years ago. By astonishing coincidence, I was the world's only Cold Fusion developer. So take that with a bit of grain of salt. These two ideas basically explain why it's hard for us to explain this Agile mindset stuff to other people who might not have started their career in a certain way. So we tend to cling to the beliefs in our first experiences, and that kind of imprints in our brains, and we want to bring back the Agile mindset to people. So the first evolution that I went through was in a startup I was working for where Agile didn't, well, it was 2001, but we didn't know Agile was a thing. And what we did to try and manage the amount of work that we had was we started to implement daily stand-ups. We started doing weekly lunches, which basically were retrospectives, and we limited the number of things that we were working on. We didn't know that that was a thing, but we sort of committed to this weekly idea of, we don't know how else to deal with this work, so let's just create an agreement about how we're going to do stuff together. That was it. So today I found out there's something called core protocols. Well, I've known it for a while, but it's something you can use and start with. My first official experience in Agile was not a great one. So a company I was working for was using Scrum and couldn't explain, for me as the professional services manager, how do I get customers to, how do I give some type of high-level estimate? They're not just going to keep giving us money until we're done and we satisfy them in an iterative way. So I went back to school and I learned some stuff. And someone mentioned Shuhari before. Was it Chris or Michael? Someone mentioned it. And it was basically, how do you stay in Shu? How do you stay as a beginner? I don't know if Mishkin is still here or if he remembers, but I did my Scrum training with Mishkin, and I remember sending him an email asking, should we estimate defects? And then I would realize that I needed to evolve again. So I needed to try these things out of the box, and I needed to evolve into something different. I was working with another coach who suggested, well, given where you're at, you should go to this thing called AYE, because it's a conference that's going to help you be uncomfortable. And I learned a lot about how people process change, and everybody processes change a little bit differently. So this conference was based on these two ideas, and it basically helped me understand why people don't think the same as me. Because I was kind of in the mode that I see a lot of organizations today is, why won't they change? Why don't they get it? I get this Agile stuff. It's so easy. Why don't other people get it? Because we're all different. And then once I kind of reached that ceiling, I realized I needed to evolve again, because I ran into another problem. And these senior leaders pulled me into the room and said, we don't want Agile to get in the way of delivery. So I hit them over the head with the Agile mindset stick and said, well, there's only 4 values. Which one should I break? And surprisingly enough, they didn't fire me, which they probably should have way back then. But then I learned there was a whole nother universe of stuff out there. So once you kind of go beyond Agile at the team level and you get into complexity and you get into organizational design, this Galbraith star idea is from the 60s, and it describes complexity of our organizations. You choose to go Agile strategically, it changes everything, and you can't control it. Then I ran into another problem, and I had to evolve again. In an organization I was working with, there was a screaming match happening between me, another coach, and a senior manager. I wasn't doing the screaming. I was standing there terrified that, oh, I guess coaching means you're supposed to yell at somebody, because the senior coach literally was, this is a cluster F, and they were screaming at each other. And I realized, well, I get this stuff. Why don't managers get it? There's got to be something out there for Agile for managers. And I had the opportunity to go to Jürgen Apollo's class about 5 years ago around Management 3.0, which brings a whole bunch of practices and tools for how you can design your organization, how you can understand what makes people tick and what motivates people, etc. And I stocked my toolkit with those ideas. The next evolution was, all these models and ideas are great, but normal people in our organizations don't care about models. They just want to know, why is this project manager asking me to fill out another form? Why can't they just get out of my hair? So I started learning about Lego Serious Play, which Michael mentioned as well. And it was a way to reduce the difference in status. So if you're a CEO and a junior developer and you're building a model collaboratively, those titles go away, because we're focused on the conversation and we're focused on the problem, and it builds safety and it builds the ability for us to have a good conversation about where we want to go as an organization. The last evolution was, how do I tie all these things together? So I had some process stuff, I had some organizational change stuff, I had some Agile management stuff, and some cool workshop and game stuff. But why am I seeing some of these things where we want to standardize and we want to institutionalize Agile? And then I learned about something called SCARF by David Rock, which explains that our brains don't understand the difference between a physical and a social threat. So the last real job I had, I quit 2 weeks before my second baby was born. We just bought a house and a car, and I had no prospects. I just hated that place. So somebody like me doesn't value certainty, which is the C in SCARF, but other people do. So how do I meet them kind of halfway and meet them in the middle when they need more than I do? And the last evolution is around behaviors. We always talk about, how do we get those people to change their behaviors? Everything's about behavior, and culture is influenced by behavior, but it's not us, right? Like, we're totally cool. We got to get those other people to change their behaviors. But sometimes the change is just too hard. Sometimes all the motivation in the world is not going to solve the problem if you just don't know how to do it. So these ideas helped figure out, how do we as change people make it easier? Or what if we are working with a really skilled team, but they're just not motivated? How do we spark that motivation? Or sometimes when you're under stress trying to get stuff delivered, you just forget and you fall back on the old way. So a lot of these ideas helped me basically become adaptable, like Ditto. So for any Pokemon players out there who've seen Ditto before, Ditto can morph and transform into anything. And it was the combination of all these ideas that basically helped me figure out the only thing that matters to change your organization are conversations. All the Agile stuff and everything else is just things you can use to help explain things to other people. Thank you.
And to close everything, Selena.
Good to go? Awesome. So my journey, actually, I'm just going to say what they said, and, because there's a lot of similarities. A lot of the conversations that I had to go into an organization starts with, we just need to go faster, we need to fix the team, we need to get more delivered in the time that we have, and we need to just reduce our costs. Things like that are happening all the time. So what do? We bring Agile in to fix everything. We're giving people lots more models and frameworks and processes to work with, right? And we have more ways to do things, and we have stand-ups, we have retrospectives, we have TDD, pair programming. I've used all of these things, and I've supported teams in adopting these things. But the challenge that I see happen is a lot of teams are still struggling. We still need to pull them out of the muck, and applying more processes and more ways to do things is not fixing the problem. The problem is actually a lot deeper than applying a new way of working. This comes down to mindset at the first level. So this is what I've learned. I apply all of those things with the teams that I'm working in, and then I'm like, okay, mindset is getting in the way. How can we support these people to adjust and adapt their mindset so that they feel that they are safe to move forwards and that they're growth-oriented rather than a fixed mindset? The challenge with this that I learned over these years and working with teams is that it's deeper than that even. People don't like to be treated like they're robots. And it's really that simple. We're bringing Agile in and asking people to operate in a certain way and follow all of these rules and regulations now that we have under Agile. And they don't feel safe to explore and expand that. They're not robots, and we need to treat them as human beings. It's really that simple, and it's that hard. So when I'm working with an organization, now I go in and I start really simple. How can we apply the simplest thing possible to help these people to move forward so that they feel safe to move forwards? How can I simplify everything to get to the root cause of what's actually going on? Applying a new process doesn't actually solve the problem. We need to simplify so that we can help people to see through and understand what it is that they're resisting to see. Especially when I'm working with leaders, it's often the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to look at it. Nobody wants to sit down and say, hey, maybe I'm the one who's in the way. Or maybe we're not treating our people with respect or kindness, and we're not creating this environment for them to actually thrive in and work in a way where they want to do their best work. This is all about people, like my peers here have said. It's about people and treating people with the respect that you actually want to grow them and help them to be successful. If they're not successful, we have nothing to work with. For me, this goes down to the core. To work with people means to work from the heart. So now what I do when I go into an organization, I focus on the people first. My metric, my very first one, is how many more smiles do I see 2 weeks into an engagement? If people are frustrated and angry and not checking in because they don't feel safe to you, how many more smiles can I see happen in 2 weeks? If I don't see an increase in smiles, then I know it's not working very well. This really requires for me to go into total surrender mode. How can I surrender to what's happening right now in the organization with the people that I'm having a conversation with? How can I let go of everything that I have in my mind, in my head, and say, it doesn't matter what those things are. What I need to do right now is be present with the people that I'm with and help them to feel safe and supported. In order to do that, I have to put on my oxygen mask first to bring me into mindfulness and into presence and let go of all of my ideas, all of my training across computer programming, Agile, all of these things have to be let go of first so that I can support these people, so I can be at my best for them to be at their best. This requires courage. And courage, the original form of courage, is really about speaking your mind with your heart. So speaking your heart's truth with people and to people. This is what courage is really about. It's not courage to say the dark, scary things that nobody wants to talk about, but it's about coming from the heart and honoring that and allowing other people to do that. This is about leading with love. This is about leading with empathy, to really, truly listen to people. And this is what I do. I go in and I sit with people and I just listen. And I'm vulnerable. I share my successes and my failures. I share all the ways that I'm struggling, the fears that I have. This helps to create safety for people. They just feel heard. They feel safe, they feel secure, they know that they're not alone anymore. The next thing that I do is really focus on celebrations. I love to do like high five celebrations, and people kind of look at me funny and say, we're not in kindergarten. You know, we don't need high fives to celebrate, but little things like that help people to feel safe and engaged and they have fun again. We want to have celebrations to help people to laugh and to enjoy the workspace so that they feel safe to go into those dark, scary spaces and they know that they can have safety. It's physical and emotional safety. It's feeling safety, that we can talk about feelings and our humanity in the organizations that we're working in because we are people, we are human beings. When we have that space, we can start to shine the light of awareness into those dark, scary spaces. The things that nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to explore, when we shine that light there, it's because we have safety to explore them together as a partnership and as a team. And with that, I can extend an invitation to the people that I'm working with, to the people that I'm supporting, to move forwards together in concert, hand in hand, that we are moving forwards in the same direction and that we can explore the things that we need to do. This is all in hand with all the Agile things that we do, but this is always first. So I extend an invitation to myself also to show up the same way. I extend an invitation to the leaders that I'm working with, for them to find vulnerability and courage in working with the people that they're working with. This is all about expression from the heart. Love is always my guide now. It's always before process, it's always before practice, technical or otherwise, because that is how I get results. That's how I can take a team that is incredibly angry and frustrated with each other, where they don't want to show up to release parties, and within 3 months have a rapid transformation where they love to work with each other and there's laughter in their space again, because I show up with love and care and empathy for the people that I'm working with. With that, we are able to tap others into that space where they feel safe and secure to tap into their greatness, to hold their superpowers, whatever those things may be, the best of themselves into their organizations. So with that, I leave you with, from Daring Greatly, with Brene Brown, which I adore, an invitation to you. Do you have the courage to dare greatly in your organizations, to be vulnerable, and to lead the change that you're looking for? Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for all the 6. Please stand up. It was starting with an invitation, and Selena ended with an invitation.